Hello and welcome back to Ricoh GR 101, episode 10, shutter speed priority. So we're going to get straight to it. We've done a previous video on episode 5.1 and 5.2 on aperture priority and the effects on depth of field. Aperture priority has that advantage of giving you creative control over the depth of field of the camera, and shutter speed priority gives you creative control over, wouldn't you know it, the shutter speed. On the Ricoh GR3 it's listed as TV, time value. It's the same thing, that's shutter speed priority. We're going to push this little nub down here, dial that all over there. So now we're on shutter speed priority. Your front wheel, in the standard configuration that we've been running with so far, your front wheel will now control the shutter speed down there. You can see it's at 1/25 there now. I can slow it down and I can go as low as I want and I can go up. In shutter speed priority, I will override any minimum shutter speeds that I was using with aperture priority, and the camera will take care of the rest. It will, in the exposure triangle, we're controlling this part, shutter speed priority, and the camera will control the ISO and the aperture. So we're controlling one of the three aspects of getting a good exposure. In this mode, just like in aperture priority, you've got the front wheel to control the main configuration, the shutter speed, and you've got your jog dial at the back, which you can use for exposure compensation. Okay, so that is the one that will give the other two values a nudge when you're in shutter speed priority. Now I'm going to show you a series of images. I'm going to drop into the video here, and you can see that if you want to stop motion, you need, of course, a higher shutter speed. Stopping motion out on the street in street photography, somewhere around 1/400th of a second, 1/500th of a second, and you should be fine. But if you want to get motion blur, then you've got to take a risk and lower that shutter speed. And I've got an image coming up here. You've got this guy standing out in the street. He was standing quite still doing something with his phone, and I just quickly lowered my shutter speed. It was getting quite dark. It doesn't look it in the image, but it was getting dark, and so I lowered the shutter speed. He was standing still enough to get a good shot of this guy, and I got the motion blur and the traffic behind him. Okay, and I've got a couple more here. You can see that I got the shutter speed down low enough to get some motion blur in the image. But this guy, for example, he's kind of stopped in mid-stride, and that's why I have increased the shutter speed. And I was using manual focus on most of these shots, not manual focus, sorry, autofocus. I wasn't doing snap shooting. I was just taking my time, pointing the camera, and as people walked in and through the scene, I was just using the back screen focus. I would just tap with my thumb and take a shot. And you can see this guy's giving me a bit of a funny look when I stopped him in mid-stride, but that's part of street photography, I guess. So that is it, basically. If you're shooting your kids, if you're just using this camera for travel and taking pictures of your kids and stuff like that, in good light, crank that shutter speed up, and you should be able to get some good shots of your kids. You can see here in this image that this was in an art gallery in Stockholm. The kids were out on a day trip and they were really running around this glass box configuration, and I didn't have the shutter nearly fast enough to capture these little guys running around. Now, in shutter speed priority, the camera will raise both the ISO and open up your aperture. So if you're doing snap focus and things like that, that might not be the best, that might not give you the best results, because it might decrease your or it might open your aperture so wide that your depth of field is getting way too short. In that case, when you need creative control over both the shutter speed and the aperture, then we really should be looking at partial or full manual control over the camera, and we will be looking at those two aspects of it in a future video coming up very soon, actually, because we've got to get this. So far, we've been doing kind of like a video manual guide to the camera, where you can look at each aspect of it and just get on with shooting, either for just having it as a pocket camera, travel camera, street photography and things like that. But we need to start getting into the exciting part, getting into the more creative aspects of using a camera like this for street photography, for what I call camping in street photography, and yeah, landscapes and all sorts of stuff like that. So I'm getting excited now. It's going to be great when we start getting away from the video manual guide, and let's get started on the creative aspects of it. It's going to be great. So subscribe, give it a like. More videos on the way. That was shutter speed priority. Next up, full manual and partial manual. Okay, bye for now. See ya.